what I talk about when I introduce the show a lot, about, fighting the war on dysfunction one dynamic at a time. And I also talk about um, developing herd immunity. And that's because we're a tribe here, right? We're getting it together. It's the only way you can get it together is together. Don't ever think you can get it together alone. We get it together. That's the way it works. And as we do this together, you develop immunity. What I mean by that is that we change our internal dynamics that oftentimes uh, keep dysfunction going. Okay. Sometimes can subject us to a lot of pain. And also the skills we need to end it and extricate ourselves when we find it. So it is a lot like an immune system. Now, let me say in the beginning what I did not say, because I always get this response when I talk about that as we get healthier, it helps to ward off our entanglements in dysfunction. I will always get somebody that feels as if I'm invalidating their pain, saying they caused it when they were with this horrible person. I am not saying that at all. Bad people happen to good people. Okay. There, a lot of what we do and talk about is where you have been oppressed and abused, okay, or hurt or abandoned or treated wrongly. And so there's healing for that and compassion for that. And that's what we should be doing first of all, is helping victims. Okay. So at the same time, just like we raise our kids to, when you are able and you know, you see the bully on the playground, walk the other way. You can't always do that. Some people are victimized. I get that. But here's what we find. Let me give you this simple fact. Some people even have a problem with this, and I don't. Is that when you are, for example, when you have a pattern of enabling dysfunction, then if you're enabling it, what do you get? Well, you get dysfunction. I mean, we're allowing it to keep happening, sometimes funding it, sometimes writing checks for it, rescuing people, all of that. And the very clear teaching of all the wisdom literature in the world, including the Bible, including, go just read the research on what just assertiveness training does for people in psychology. It's where you learn to set boundaries and you learn to say no, and you learn to not get pulled in. Well, a lot of times that has to do with our own dynamics inside, right? For example, if I have a critical voice in my head that says to me, I'm bad if I don't do what somebody else wants all the time, then all it takes is somebody to want something from me. And I have a compulsion in my head that does not allow me to say no. Some of you might have experienced that, where, oh, I feel bad. I didn't go do this. Oh, I feel bad. Oh, my mother, my father, my sister, my brother, my whoever wanted me to, and I was just tired and, I'm doing too much. I really need some time for myself, or I wanted to do something good for myself or whatever. And I said no. And oh, I feel so bad. And then I felt so bad, I called him back up and said, okay, I'll do it. Well, that's an internal dynamic that can subject us to, being controlled. And so when we talk about changing our dynamics to become immune, that's exactly what we're talking about. We're talking about growth. We're talking about becoming stronger. We're talking about getting impulse control. I'll give you another example. One of my favorite verses, it's something like, if you're really, really hungry, even, really, this is a paraphrase, really crappy stuff looks good. And if you're really full, then even the sweetest honey doesn't look good. About enough, right? You can walk away. Well, what if we're really, really hungry for love? What if we got a hole inside? We hear a lot about attachment styles. And some people, when they are raised, they're fed and they're physical needs are by and large taken care of, but their emotional needs are not. They weren't loved. There's a big hole inside. And all of this crap out there about, in pop psychology, that you're going to just love yourself out of a hole. Of course we have to have compassionate attitudes towards ourselves, and it helps. Research shows that, if you're nicer to yourself, you do better, a lot better, actually. Your brain works better than if you're critical to yourself. But see, that doesn't do away with our need for love from the outside. So that's why we talk so often about wherever you came from, it's important to now, your whole world can be bigger than the family you were born into. Children don't have a choice. That is the whole world. Their whole world is in just a couple of people. Think about that, with how lame and hurtful and ill-equipped some people are to be parents. We hear it every day on the show. And that little child is supposed to be deriving life from these people, and they don't. And so they're empty inside. So what happens? Well, they become subject to predators. And it's awful. But what we also see is when somebody comes and joins them and rescues them out of that pattern. We see this all the time, and stands with them. Good people stand with them, and that hole inside begins to get filled up, and you're supported. Then things start to look different in the world, right? And people start to be able to see deception and yellow flags and all of that stuff where they were once victimized. They get stronger through the power of other people's love and God's love. And that's what, when we're not hurting, we must be giving to others, is that empowering protection, empowering love. And then people get stronger. So you overcome the guilt messages in your head, you overcome the susceptibilities. What about this one? How many stinking affairs happen because somebody doesn't feel good about themselves, feel okay about themselves? They feel like they're not smart enough, or they're not this enough, or they're not pretty enough, or they're not successful enough, or this, that, and the other. And they're in a relationship with somebody who's critical, right? What happens? There's that deficit inside, and they go to work, or sometimes they even go to church, or go to the neighborhood gatherings, or wherever it is, and somebody else comes along who seduces them with flattery. Oh, you're so wonderful. You're so smart. You're so amazing. And oh, does that feel good to that hurt heart? And sometimes we can't see that, you're being pulled into something. But when people start to, get stronger, then they start to spot flattery and manipulation and falsehood and deception for what it is. And they say, well, thank you very much. Where are the burgers? Gonna go somewhere else. Decided to talk to you because this could not end well. So that's what we're talking about. One of my favorite verses, and this is what made me think of this. I was studying it this morning. It says this. It says, "Don't be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good." Now, let's just throw in, for the sake of, what would be the right word? Not translation. You could use translation, I guess, here, for the sake of I don't know. All these Bible versions, they take the real meaning. They don't listen to meaning. They put it in modern language and all that. The Living Bible was probably the first one to do that. So what is that verse read this way? Don't be overcome by dysfunction, but overcome dysfunction with health. So that's what we're talking about. That's what we're talking about. Changing patterns, changing the deficits, healing the brokenhearted, strengthening. Another one of my favorite verses. Strengthening the arms that are feeble and the knees that are weak. How many times we hear callers on here say they ought to be saying no to that controlling adult sibling or whoever. You got to strengthen those arms and strengthen those knees to be able to say no, thank you. I don't want to have a conversation with you while you're screaming at me. I will walk away from that. See, sometimes before that, they might not have had the freedom to do that. That's what we mean. We're talking about one dynamic at a time, you getting healthy. So the dysfunction around you can't stick to you. Have you ever noticed how some people have pretty thick skin? People hurl insults at them and they just go, well, sucks to be you. That's the way you're going to walk around life. It doesn't get in. See, that's skin. You should have skin. It's a boundary where the germs can't get in. But if we have a wound, they can get in. So let's overcome dysfunction. One dynamic at a time, getting healthy, one dynamic at a time. And let's come alongside people who are needing to be strengthened, needing to be healed, needing to be helped, and help them get the skin that they need to not be wounded anymore. Up their immune system, vaccinate them will help. Okay. And we need help. We're all in this together. Everybody's got their vulnerabilities. So there we go.